Hello everyone on the internet, my name is Katarina. Welcome to my channel, Curiosity Killed a Cat. Today I will be taking you through my 25 favorite reads of 2025. I've been doing this list for years over on my Twitter account, and this is the first time I get to share with y'all on BookTube, which makes me very excited. It's also the first year that I felt compelled to add some honorary mentions because it was very hard to compile this list to just 25 books, which sounds insane, but I'm just so glad that I had a really great reading year in 2025. For the honorable mentions, I would really love to recommend the books Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, which I gave 5 stars to, Pick a Color by Sowankam Thawawongsa, which I also gave 5 stars, Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kelly Lee Baker, which I gave 4.5 stars by running it down to 4, Julie Chan Is Dead by An Zhang, which I gave 4 stars to, and The Husbands by Holly Gramazio, which I gave 4 stars to. I think it was actually 4.5, but I rounded it down. If you haven't read these books, I definitely recommend you check them out because they were some of my favorite reads of last year for sure. They really stick out to me and I really enjoyed all of these books, and I think all of these authors were new to me as well, so that was also very exciting, and I would definitely recommend that you check them out. On to my 25 favorite reads of 2025. The first one on the list is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. In this book, we follow 40 women who lived in a cage underground and were watched over by a group of men with no idea why they were there, and one day a young girl actually ends up being a key to their escape and survival above ground as they try and figure out what happened to them. This was a really impactful book. The second part especially blew me away. I really enjoyed the themes and questions that this book covered, and it absolutely deserves the hype. Last year, I also read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. It follows a woman named Millie who starts working at this new household after she gets out of jail, and soon she realizes that things aren't really exactly as they seem. This is my first Frida McFadden, and this was a very hyped book, and I know people have a lot of criticisms for it, which I don't, disparage. I definitely think that they're quite valid, but this worked for me. Okay, this absolutely worked for me. It hit like crack. I read both this and the sequel on a bus, and I was going crazy. I was going crazy. She definitely laced this with something. It's all I'm saying. I was there, like, losing my goddamn mind. Is it the best thing I ever read? No. But was it fun? Was it exciting? Was I absolutely down with it? Yes. I absolutely was. It was definitely a standout for me in 2025 just because I had so much fun. The next book we have is Unloved by Peyton Curran, which is the sequel to Unsteady. It's a hockey romance that follows Matt Frederick and Ro Sheriff. So in this book, we met them in the previous book and we are seeing their romance in this book. What I love about this one is that it's, I think, set at the same time, so a lot of the things from the first book overlap in this one, and except we're getting them from a bit of a different perspective, which I really enjoyed. It's also slow burn, which really works for me, and I just loved the way that their relationship develops, right? Freddie is this star left winger for the Waterfall Wolves, which is, I think, the college that they're at, and he has issues with dyslexia and ADHD, and so he has to bring his grades up to, keep his spot at the team because he's tied to a National Hockey League after graduation. And Ro becomes his tutor. Now she has issues of her own because she has this like on again, off again boyfriend, which is a very toxic relationship, and she's trying to get past from that. And she finds this kind of help and this kindred spirit with Freddie, and just very heartwarming to see their journey. I just really love reading this book. It does deal with some pretty heavy topics, I will say right away, very much like the first book did as well, but it's just it's just so heartwarming, and it's everything that I want in a romance book, especially like in a hockey romance. It also just checks off all of those tropes that I adore, and so this one is one that I really love. Next, I have a nonfiction book, and it's Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. When I read this book, which actually chronicles John Green's journey into finding out more about tuberculosis and telling us then the history of tuberculosis and how everything around us has truly been impacted by this disease, as well as chronicling how, although it's a completely curable and treatable disease in today's day and age, there's still millions and millions of people who die from it. Specifically in third world countries, there simply isn't access to life-saving medication. I remember reading this and my jaw being on the floor. I think this is such an important read for everyone who maybe doesn't know a lot about tuberculosis or how it still impacts people, and how everything in history truly was impacted by this disease. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Truly, everything is tuberculosis. I give this 5 stars. It was so good. I was blown away. I really am a John Green fan, but I think I've especially been enjoying his journey into nonfiction. Next, we have Tender is the Flashback Cena Basterica, in which we follow Marcus, who works at a local processing plant where he processes human meat because animal meat is no longer viable for human consumption. We see how his life is in shambles. His wife left him. His father is suffering from dementia, and he's just, not really thinking too hard about what he does to make a living until one day he gets, and I quote, a live specimen of the best quality, which is a woman who was raised for the slaughter, and that's when it kind of shakes him up, and it starts this very interesting narrative that this book brings. It's both disgusting but also incredibly poignant, and I definitely recommend this book, but only if you have the stomach for it. And if you're willing to kind of really dig deep into the themes that this book is bringing forth, because it was genuinely like a very compelling read. I was thinking about it for days afterwards. And next we have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is the next installment in the Hunger Games series. And in this one, we are following Haymitch's Games, which is definitely a fan favorite and a fan hopeful story that I was so excited that we finally got, and it didn't disappoint. In 2025, I actually found some new authors to love and to keep an eye on, and one of them is Coco Mellors. I especially loved her novel Blue Sisters, which follows 3 estranged sisters who deal with the death of their 4th sister, their youngest sister, Nikki, who died from an accidental overdose. They are then forced to confront their grief and their own personal struggles that this brings up. It was excellent. It's exactly the kind of story that I love. I love this kind of character-driven, generational story that is also dealing with a character that haunts the narrative. Just it was really, really good on a lot of levels and exactly to my taste. Then we have Conclave by Robert Harris, which tells the story of a papal conclave after the death of one pope to pick another. I read this one, I think at the perfect time, because firstly, Conclave the movie was so fucking good. I actually managed to read the book and then go see it in the cinemas because they had it back in for the Oscars. So I was really, really excited, and I definitely love that movie. I had so much fun with it, and I had even more fun with the book. Also at the right time, because there was a papal conclave happening. So that was brilliant. And yeah, I really love this book. I didn't expect a thriller about choosing the next pope to be as good and to have me by the throat as it did, but oh god, it had me by the damn throat. Next, we have a book by one of my favorite authors, Hong Kong, and it's her book We Do Not Part, for which she had gotten the Nobel Prize for writing. This one follows Hyunha, who travels to Jeju Island to take care of a friend's birth and her things after she had sadly passed away. She also has to confront the regent's tragic past, and it's a story about trauma and how it gets passed down to future generations. That's the part where it got me. Okay, I love a good generational story. As I said, I love a good historical story because those tend to be tied together very, very well. And I just love this. It may be so emotional. I think no one does emotion the way Hong Kong does. It is in a way also a horror story. I think history truly is a horror story. And this showcases it. I think you don't need to know anything historical to go into this and enjoy it. You get all of the information. But for me, it helped that I had read a book that already dealt with this same time period, and it was The Island of the Sea Women by Lisa C. If you haven't ever read Hong Kong, I definitely recommend that you do. She got that Nobel Prize for a reason. Let me tell you, I will read her grocery lists. Okay, she's one of my all-time favorite authors, and I cannot sing her enough praises. Next, we have a YA novel, which I don't read many of, but this one definitely left an impact on me, and it's I'm Not Jessica Chen by An Liang. I'm a big An Liang fan. I think this might be my favorite of hers, and it basically follows Jenna Chen, who feels overshadowed by her perfect, high-achieving cousin, Jessica, and so she makes this wish to have Jessica's life. And this is a pattern with An Liang's stories where she is writing YA novels, but she has this fantastical element in them that she does so well. That's always a standout, and it's a perfect niche that she slotted herself into, and I absolutely recommend it. Like, it's so, so, so good, and she does it so, 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 so well. And we see Jenna become Jessica, and so she's kind of realizing that Jessica's life isn't all that perfect. It's not all that it's shaped up to be. And that maybe she hasn't been appreciating her own life enough and her own self. And so she's kind of dealing with all that while trying to figure out how to make it back to her own body, her own life before everyone forgets her. Another thing that Ah Young is incredible in is writing her male love interests. And all I have to say, where's my Aaron Kai? Where's my Aaron Kai? Where is he? Where is he? I'm looking for him, okay? I need one. Please, as Ray says, where's my husband? Where is he? Because probably her best love interest she's ever written. I'm saying it. I'm saying it. Please read this book. Another one of my favorite authors is Emily Henry, and I am, I think, in the minority that actually really, really loved and adored Great Big Beautiful Life, and that's why it's on my list of my favorite reads, and it might just be my new favorite Emily Henry after Happy Place. There, I said it. But here's the thing, like I've mentioned a couple of times already, but it's exactly the kind of book I love. So this book was written for me, okay? It's like as if she asked me what I wanted, and then she made it. And so that's why I'm not mad that people don't like it or that's a least favorite of theirs. It's fine because Emily Henry made this one for me. This book follows aspiring journalist Alice Scott as she competes with seasoned biographer Hayden Anderson to write a life story of a reclusive, scandalous heiress, Margaret Ives, on a Georgia island. And yeah, I love this. I love this. I love this kind of historical fiction element to it. I love the backstory for Margaret. I love the pacing. I love the way the characters were written and developed. I love the relationship between Alice and Hayden. I will forever sing this book praises. I will be in its corner fighting for it for the rest of my life if need be. And then there's another nonfiction novel, and this one is the David Lynch and Kristen McKenna autobiography called Room to Dream. I'm a very, very big David Lynch fan. My friends and I live and breathe Twin Peaks, and we were absolutely devastated to learn of his passing. So I was excited to get my hands on this book, which is very interesting meld of autobiography, like memoir, with David Lynch writing his own recollections of certain aspects of his life, and then Kristen McKenna does the biographical aspect where she really deeply researches it and does interviews with other people and then builds this book. I really loved it. Definitely recommend this one if you're a fan of David Lynch. And I think you'll enjoy it. I really, really think you will. I miss him every single day. And I know he's looking down on us and wishing us to have a very, very bright day and future. So, if you're able to, have 2 cookies and a Coke for our legend, please. Because I know I will. There is a Taylor Jenkins read on this list, and that is Atmosphere, a Love Story, which I gave 5 stars to, and it follows astrophysicist John Goodman as she joins NASA's 1980s space shuttle program, where she finds love and family with her fellow trainees, especially astronaut Vanessa Ford, while a present-day mission is threatening everything. And I'm just so good. It's a slow start. For a part of it, I thought, okay, this is going to be like a 4-star, but that last third, I was sobbing like a kid. I was sobbing like a baby, and just no one does these kinds of stories like Taylor Jenkins Reid. I really think she always nails them. I've had some misses with Mince Jenkins Reid, don't get me wrong, but this one was just so good. I really would love it. I think this is Taylor Jenkins Reid at her best. Now a bit of my all-time favorite genre, which is sci-fi. I have finally dipped my toes into the writings of Emily St. John Mandel, and I'm super excited to read more of her stuff in 2026. But in 2025, I read Sea of Tranquility and absolutely loved it. This is a new instant favorite. I love how when you finish it, you want to go reread it. I love how all the pieces fall into place. I love how there's twists and turns and just time travel excellence. That's what I'm going to call it. Time travel excellence. I love the writing style. I love how emotional it is, how deep it is. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to read more of hers. I'm late to the, hype train, but hopefully there's still room on it because I am ready to commit. Okay. I can't wait to read more of her writing. And I also already have a Station 11 borrowed from my library. So that is my imminent read. Another favorite read of mine in 2025 was Open Throat by Henry Hoke. We follow a lonely queer mountain lion in drought-stricken Los Angeles as he navigates survival, gender identity, and what it means to be a human. This is a very weird little book, probably the weirdest one you'll ever read. Like, it really plays around with structure and form in a way that is just really refreshing. And it might be a bit confusing at first, but once you get into it, it pays off magnificently. Trust me, if you want something that is unlike anything you've ever read before, I recommend Open Throat. The next book is one by Percival Everett, who is another author that I read for the first time in 2025. I really enjoyed his book James, but the one that really blew me away was actually The Trees. I read this one right as Dua Lipa had it as her monthly book club pick, and then I got to watch the interview she did with Percival Everett, which was really, really amazing. This one follows two Black detectives as they investigate a series of murders where white men are found dead alongside the mysteriously reappearing corpse of a Black man that looks like Emmett Till. And it reveals a supernatural reckoning for historical racial violence, especially the lynching of Black people. I really appreciated how this book handles that part of history and the impacts that it has even till this day. It's also very funny and has this like very comedic tone that is pulled off magnificently. I think in anyone else's hands, it would fall apart. Percival Everett does a fantastic job with it, and it's both kind of this comedic aspect to it, but also a very serious one, and it's blended so well. As you may have noticed, I'm very late to some hype trains, and one of them is this next book, and it's Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I know this is another controversial one in the booktube sphere, and I definitely agree with a lot of the criticism that is out there, but at the end of the day, this was a fun time for me. I really had fun with the first book. Very much like The Housemaid, it felt like it was laced with crack. I just couldn't put it down. I was having an amazing time. I felt all these things that I enjoy in this kind of fantasy book I was given, and it was fun. In my review, I said that it felt like snorting a line of cocaine. Not that I know. Then we have one of my favorite reads of the year that I would not have picked up if not for the Goodreads challenges. So although they are very um, uninspiring, sometimes it hits, and sometimes it's, for the better. And in this case, that's what happened with The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I needed, I think, a thriller or crime novel to read, and I ended up picking this one up for the challenge, and it's honestly one of like my top 5 reads of the year. This is a literary mystery set in 1975 at a New York summer camp. It focuses on the disappearance of a privileged teen named Barbara von Lahr, which echoes her brother's disappearance, an unsolved vanishing 14 years prior. I bet you're sick of me, but this is exactly up my alley. This is the kind of book I'm talking about. Like, I am absolutely 100% invested in these generational family stories with mysteries and trauma that spans generations and is intergenerational, and that shapes every single character. And I love the different points of views, and I love when it's dynamic and just exciting. And this was exactly it. Yeah, every single element that I love in a book is here, and it's has beautiful, tight writing and an excellent atmosphere. So if you haven't picked this book up, I absolutely recommend it. Now we have a romance novel, and it's First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I gave this 5 stars. This book is a contemporary romance that is an homage to, I think, Sleepless in Seattle, and it follows a jaded radio host named Aidan Valentine who runs a love advice hotline, and single mom Lucy Stone, whose daughter calls in for her on the hotline asking for dating help, and it goes viral, and then they decide to run a radio show together where they're finding love for her, and that then spawns into this slow burn romance, and it was so good. It was so good. It's a classic rom-com. Absolutely everything that I love in a romance novel is in there. I was giggling, kicking my feet. It was just, it was so, so, so beautiful, so wonderful. I'm super excited for the next book in this series and for a new couple. I just really, really hope that it delivers as much as this one did. Then I finally read Babel by R.F. Kuang. I buddy read this with my friend Anna. It's a dark academia fantasy novel set in an alternate history 19th century England. And we follow orphaned Chinese student Robin Swift, who studies at Oxford's Royal Institute of Translation called Babel. And their magic stems from silver working, which is how you actually harnessed meaning lost in translation to fuel the British Empire. I want to live inside R.F. Kuang's head. I just want to have a really, really long conversation with her about language, about meaning, about colonialism, like all of it. I think she's incredibly smart, and I think all of the themes that were in this book and the way they were covered on so many levels was just beyond mind-blowing. I couldn't stop thinking about this book for weeks, and my friend and I just kept discussing it and every single aspect of it and sending each other, voice notes about all of these concepts that it's got us thinking about. And it was so interesting, and I absolutely loved it, and I'm super excited to read more of R.F. Kuang this year as well. Another one of my favorite authors is Holly Jackson. I think she does such incredible thrillers, and the one that I read last year and really loved was Not Quite Dead Yet, and I actually think this might be her best work yet. Honestly, just genuinely, I think it might be Holly Jackson at her best. And in this one, we follow a young woman who's trying to solve her own murder before she dies. And it's just so good. Like, the tension is there, the pacing is there, the kind of love story is even there. It's just such an interesting premise, and Holly Jackson executes it to perfection. Now we're going to talk about a manga. So this is kind of a cheat because I'm not talking about specific manga volume. I'm talking about a manga arc, and it is the Water 7 arc in the One Piece manga by Eiichiro Oda. I loved this arc. We're following Luffy and the Straw Hat crew as they enter, the salty city of Water 7, and they realize that their ship, the Merry-Go, might not be fixable. And they also splinter as a team when their newest member, Nico Robin, is framed to have tried to assassinate the Water 7 mayor. This whole arc was pure perfection, right? It was pure perfection, especially coming off from Skypiea, which I wasn't as invested in. I thought it kind of went on for too long, and in the middle just wasn't the strongest, although I still enjoyed it overall. I just felt it could have been a bit tighter, but this one, peak One Piece. Next, we have The Love of My Afterlife by Chrissy Greenwood. In this book, a recently deceased woman meets the one in the afterlife waiting room and is then given a second chance at life and love if she can find him on Earth before her time is up. This one snuck up on me. I have to say, I randomly picked it up at the library because it was available, and I heard a lot of great things about this, especially from Books and Lala, who loved this book. And I was like, okay, let me give it a shot. Let me give it a shot. I actually really enjoyed The Husbands by Holly Gramazio, as I mentioned at the start of this video. And so I was like, if it's anything like that, I think I might enjoy it. And that was also another impulse pick. And so I read it, and a classic chick lit romance. Classic. And I had the time of my life. I gave it 5 stars. Loved absolutely every single thing about it. 2025 was filled with some of my favorite authors, and we continue with that streak now. And it's Frederick Bachman's My Friends, which I've read near the end of last year. In this book, we're following Louisa, who is one of the rare people that notices 3 tiny figures on a very famous painting done by a reclusive artist, and she ends up actually accidentally meeting the artist and finding out the story behind that painting and behind his life. One day I'll be able to read a Frederick Bachman book without crying, but that was not that day. And as I said with Hong Kong, I'd also read Frederick Bachman's Course of Realists, and I'd probably love them too. That man can have my life. I just really love this one. Not my favorite Bachman, but definitely up there. I really loved it. It had all the elements that I love in a Frederick Bachman story. Finally, the last book on my list and the last favorite read of 2025 was also my last read of 2025, and that's The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, another new author for me that I first read in 2025. In this one, we are following a Blackfeet Indian man named Goodstab, who becomes a vampire and haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Nation looking for justice. It did take me a minute to fully grasp it, but ultimately it just really evolves into something genuinely incredible. And I definitely recommend this book, especially if you've never read anything by Stephen Graham Jones. I think this can be a really good first introduction to him, as it has been for me. I also watched a couple of his interviews afterwards, and that was also really interesting, so I recommend doing that as well. These were my 25 favorite reads of 2025, as well as some honorable mentions. Hopefully you'll find some recommendations for yourself that you might want to check out. I deeply recommend all of these books. If any of these were also on your lists, tell me down below. Tell me some of the books that were your favorites that I didn't read. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to follow the rest of my reading journey, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!